Everyone talks about self-control, but very few truly understand what it is. Self-control is not suppression. It is not brute force. It is not resisting life with clenched teeth. Self-control is mastery. Centuries ago, the samurai understood this truth with absolute clarity. They knew that the greatest enemy was never standing across the battlefield. It was never the blade aimed at their chest. The true enemy lived inside the mind, in fear, impulse, hesitation, anger, and distraction. A warrior who could not control his thoughts could not control his actions. And a warrior who could not control his actions was already defeated. So the samurai trained differently. They did not chase motivation. They did not rely on emotion. They forged discipline through stillness, repetition, precision, and unwavering principle. They mastered themselves before ever drawing a sword. This inner battle, silent, relentless, invisible, became their greatest training ground. And from it, they developed a method so effective, so timeless, that it remains just as powerful today as it was hundreds of years ago. This is not about fighting others. This is about conquering impulses, sharpening focus, forging unbreakable self-control. This is the samurai method to master self-control. Part 1. Why most people lose control. Modern life does not train restraint. It trains reaction. Notifications demand attention. Emotions demand expression. Impulses demand immediate satisfaction. From the moment we wake up, the world pulls at the mind. A message appears. A comment triggers anger. A desire rises. And before awareness can catch up, the reaction is already happening. Words are spoken. Actions are taken. Regret follows. The average person lives in a constant state of reaction. Anger speaks before wisdom. Desire moves before thought. Fear decides before reason ever enters the room. This is not because people are weak. It is because they are untrained. Reaction feels natural. Restraint does not. And modern systems reward speed, not control. But the samurai understood something timeless. The first response is rarely the right one. On the battlefield, an instant reaction could mean death. A rushed strike exposed weakness. A panicked move ended everything. So they trained the opposite of what modern life encourages. They trained the pause. Before action, there was observation. Before emotion, there was awareness. Before movement, there was stillness. The samurai learned to sit with discomfort, to feel anger without expressing it, to experience fear without obeying it. They watched their thoughts as if watching an opponent, carefully, patiently, without attachment. In that space between impulse and action, they found power. This is where self-control begins. Not with force, not with suppression, but with delay. Delay creates choice. Choice creates control. Even a single breath taken before responding changes everything. In that moment, the mind regains authority. Emotion loses its grip. Impulse weakens. The warrior, not the reaction, takes command. Most people never experience this pause. They're carried forward by habit, emotion, and stimulus. They confuse feeling with truth. They confuse urgency with importance. And slowly, without realizing it, they surrender control of their lives to whatever triggers them next. The samurai refused this surrender. They knew that a man who cannot control his reactions is easily controlled by others, by enemies, by fear, by circumstance. So they trained to slow the mind in a fast world. They practiced restraint until it became instinct. They replaced impulse with awareness and chaos with clarity. Self-control, in its purest form, is not about saying no. It is about waiting. Waiting long enough to see clearly. Waiting long enough to choose wisely. And that single skill, the ability to delay, is the foundation upon which all discipline is built. This is the first lesson of the samurai method. Control does not come from speed. It comes from stillness. Part 2. The samurai definition of self-control. For the samurai, self-control was not repression. It was not emotional numbness. And it was never cold detachment from life. Self-control meant command over the moment. The samurai understood something most people misunderstand even today. Emotions are not the enemy. Fear is not weakness. Anger is not failure. Desire is not corruption. These emotions are natural forces, powerful, unavoidable, and dangerous only when left uncontrolled. A samurai could feel fear and still move forward with precision. He could feel anger and still strike cleanly without recklessness. He could feel pain, exhaustion, even the presence of death, and still act correctly. This was true self-control, not the absence of emotion, but dominance over it. The samurai did not try to silence their emotions. They trained to stand above them, to observe fear without obeying it, to feel anger without letting it guide the blade, to experience desire without surrendering judgment. Emotion was information, not instruction. This distinction mattered deeply. On the battlefield, emotional suppression led to rigidity. Emotional indulgence led to chaos. Only clarity created survival. The samurai sought a state where the mind remained open, calm, and precise, even while the heart raced and the body trembled. This clarity came from training the gap between stimulus and response. When something happened, a sudden attack, a loud sound, an unexpected threat, the untrained mind reacted instantly. But the samurai created space, a fraction of a second where awareness stepped in before action. In that space, control was born. They called this state presence, being fully anchored in the now, not lost in fear of what might happen, not distracted by what already occurred. Presence allowed them to choose the correct response, not the emotional one. To the samurai, losing control did not mean feeling emotion. Losing control meant letting emotion decide. That was the true failure. That was the true danger. This is why samurai training emphasized stillness, breathing, posture, and ritual. These practices trained the nervous system to remain steady under pressure. They taught the body and mind to stay aligned even when chaos erupted. Self-control, in the samurai sense, was freedom. Freedom from being hijacked by impulse. Freedom from being ruled by circumstance. Freedom to act with intention instead of reaction. And this definition changes everything, because it means self-control is not about becoming less human. It is about becoming more masterful. The samurai did not seek to feel less. They trained to command more. This is the second lesson of the samurai method. You do not defeat emotion. You lead it. Part 3. Stillness before action. Every samurai trained stillness. Not occasionally, not symbolically, but daily. Before movement, there was stillness. Before speech, there was silence. Before decision, there was breath. This sequence was not poetic tradition. It was survival logic. The samurai understood that action taken from chaos multiplies chaos. Action taken from stillness creates precision. This is why they practiced saiza, why they meditated in silence, why they slowed the body when the world demanded speed. Stillness was not inactivity. It was preparation. An untrained body moves impulsively. An untrained mind follows. But when the body is calm, grounded, and aligned, the mind settles naturally. Breathing deepens. Awareness sharpens. The nervous system steadies. And control returns. The samurai knew that you cannot command the mind while the body is in panic. A racing body creates a racing mind. A tense posture creates scattered thought. So they reversed the equation. They slowed the body first, trusting that the mind would follow. In saiza, discomfort arose quickly. Pain in the legs, restlessness in the spine, urges to shift, scratch, escape. But the samurai did not react. They observed. They breathed. They remained. And in that stillness, something powerful happened. The urge lost its authority. The mind learned it did not have to obey every impulse. Discomfort became information, not command. This is where self-control was forged. Stillness trained the pause. The pause trained awareness. Awareness trained choice. On the battlefield, this training became instinct. When chaos erupted, shouting, steel, blood, fear, the untrained froze or panicked. The samurai did neither. Their stillness moved with them. Even in motion, their mind remained grounded. Before striking, they felt the breath. Before reacting, they sensed the body. Before committing, they observe the moment fully. This fraction of a second, invisible to others, was everything. It prevented reckless strikes. It stopped emotional errors. It allowed correct action to emerge naturally. Modern life has erased this pause. We speak while emotional. We decide while stressed. We act while distracted. And then we wonder why control slips away. The samurai remind us of a forgotten law. Speed without stillness is loss of control. Stillness is not weakness. It is command. It is the quiet authority of a mind that does not rush, does not panic, does not surrender leadership to impulse. A calm body creates a calm mind. A calm mind creates clarity. Clarity creates control. This is why the samurai always returned to stillness. Not because they were slow, but because they were precise. This is the third lesson of the samurai method. If you want control in action, you must first master stillness. Because the warrior who can be still, even for a breath, will always move with power, purpose, and command. Part 4, Breath, the hidden weapon. Among all the tools of the samurai, one was never visible. No steel, no armor, no symbol of rank. It was always with them, their breath. The samurai mastered breathing because they understood a truth few recognize even now. Breath is the fastest way to command a mind. When emotions rose, they did not fight the feeling. They slowed the breath. When danger approached, they did not gasp or tighten. They deepened it. Breath was their hidden weapon. They knew that the body and mind are inseparable. When breath becomes shallow and fast, the nervous system shifts into panic. Vision narrows. Thought collapses. Impulse takes control. But when breath is slow and controlled, the nervous system calms. Awareness widens. Clarity returns. Whoever controls the nervous system controls the self. This is why breath was trained relentlessly, in stillness, in movement, in combat. Every inhale through the nose grounded the body. Every long exhale signaled safety to the nervous system. With each breath, chaos lost its grip. The samurai understood something modern science now confirms. The exhale is the key. A longer exhale slows the heart. It reduces adrenaline. It prevents emotional escalation. This is why, even in the face of danger, they breathed out longer than they breathed in. Inhale through the nose. Exhale slowly, deliberately. In moments of fear, the breath became an anchor. In moments of anger, it became restraint. In moments of hesitation, it restored command. On the battlefield, breath dictated survival. A warrior who lost his breath lost his timing. A warrior who panicked in breathing panicked in action. But the samurai who kept his breath steady could move with precision even while surrounded by chaos. This control was not accidental. It was conditioned. Through meditation, saiza, kata, and repetition, breathing patterns were embedded into the body until calm became instinct. Even under extreme stress, the breath responded before thought could interfere. Modern life pushes the opposite pattern. Shallow breathing, mouth breathing, breath held unconsciously during stress. And with it, control leaks away. We tense, react, and regret. Not because we lack willpower, but because we lose breath discipline. The samurai never made this mistake. They trained breathing first because it governs everything else. Breath controls posture. Posture controls emotion. Emotion controls action. Master the breath, and the entire chain comes under command. This is the fourth lesson of the samurai method. Control your breath, and you control your response. Because when the breath is steady, the mind cannot spiral. And when the mind cannot spiral, the warrior remains calm, even in the heart of chaos. Part 5. Discipline over desire. The samurai lived by Bushido, the warrior's code. Not as philosophy, not as tradition, but as a daily standard that governed every choice they made. Bushido placed honor over comfort, duty over pleasure, long-term mastery over short-term desire. This is where true self-control was forged. The samurai understood that desire is temporary, but consequences are permanent. Hunger passes, anger fades, pleasure disappears, but actions taken under their influence echo far longer. So they refused to let impulse rule their lives. They did not ask, "What do I feel like doing?" They asked, "What must be done?" That question changes everything. Desire asks for ease. Discipline asks for alignment. The samurai knew that feelings shift moment to moment. If action followed emotion, life would become chaotic and directionless. Instead, they anchored themselves to values. When decisions arose, they measured them against honor, loyalty, duty, and self-respect, not mood. This did not mean they felt less desire. It meant desire no longer sat on the throne. When comfort tempted them to avoid training, Bushido demanded commitment. When fear suggested retreat, Bushido demanded courage. When pleasure distracted them from duty, Bushido demanded restraint. And over time, this repetition built something unbreakable: identity. Self-control strengthens when values outrank impulses. A man without values negotiates with every urge. A warrior with a code does not. The decision is already made. The mind does not debate. It obeys. This is why Bushido was so powerful. It removed friction from discipline. The samurai did not rely on motivation. They relied on principle. Motivation rises and falls. Principle remains. Modern life flips this equation. It teaches comfort first. It rewards indulgence. It tells people to follow feelings, chase pleasure, and avoid discomfort. And as a result, control weakens. Attention fragments. Discipline erodes. The samurai rejected this softness. They understood that the path to mastery is narrow and often uncomfortable. But they also understood that comfort weakens the mind while discipline sharpens it. Every time they chose duty over desire, they reinforced self-command. Every resisted impulse strengthened restraint. Every disciplined action rewired the mind toward control. Bushido was not restrictive. It was liberating. It freed them from being ruled by cravings, from being pulled by impulse, from being owned by emotion. This is the fifth lesson of the samurai method. Self-control is not built by resisting everything. It is built by standing for something. When your values are clear, impulses lose power. When duty leads, desire follows, not the other way around. And that is how a warrior becomes unshakable. Part 6. Training under pressure. The samurai did not train in comfort. They did not wait for ideal conditions. They did not seek ease. They trained in cold, in fatigue, in relentless repetition. Why? Because they understood a truth that most people never learn. Self-control that only exists in comfort is not self-control at all. Anyone can appear disciplined when conditions are perfect, when energy is high, motivation is strong, and distractions are low. But the samurai knew that real life and real battle never arrive under perfect conditions. Control had to survive exhaustion. It had to function under pain. It had to remain intact when a mind begged for escape. So they trained where the mind wanted to quit. Long hours of repetition dulled the body. Cold stiffened the joints. Hunger weakened strength. And yet, training continued. Not because they enjoyed suffering, but because pressure reveals truth. When the body is tired, discipline is tested. When the mind is stressed, habits are exposed. In these moments, excuses surface. Impulses grow louder. The urge to stop, to rest, to abandon effort becomes overwhelming. This is where most people break. But this is exactly where the samurai leaned in. They knew that control is forged at the edge of endurance. Every time they continued despite fatigue, they taught the mind a new rule. Discomfort is not a command. Pain is information, not authority. The body may protest, but the warrior decides. This training rewired their nervous system. Stress no longer meant panic. Fatigue no longer meant loss of control. Pressure became familiar territory, not a threat. And familiarity breeds calm. On the battlefield, this made all the difference. When others froze, the samurai moved. When chaos erupted, their training surfaced. Breath remained steady. Posture stayed grounded. Decisions were clear. Why? Because they had already been there, in exhaustion, in discomfort, in strain, thousands of times before. Modern life avoids this forge. Comfort is constant. Escape is instant. Discomfort is numbed rather than faced. And as a result, self-control remains fragile. The moment pressure appears, it collapses. The samurai chose the opposite path. They intentionally trained under pressure so that pressure would never own them. Cold hardened the body. Fatigue strengthened the will. Repetition disciplined the mind. This is the sixth lesson of the samurai method. Do not train for ease. Train for reality. Because control that survives pressure is real control. And the warrior who can remain disciplined when tired, stressed, and uncomfortable is the warrior who cannot be broken. That is where self-control stops being theory and becomes instinct. Part 7. The Rule of One Cut. A samurai believed in one decisive action. One cut, one moment, one commitment. There was no room for hesitation. No space for wasted movement. No second-guessing once action began. In combat, indecision was fatal. A half-committed strike exposed weakness. A scattered mind created openings. This philosophy became known as the rule of one cut, the idea that when the moment arrives, action must be clear, complete, and final. But this level of decisiveness did not begin in combat. It was forged long before in the mind. One cut required absolute mental clarity. To reach that clarity, the samurai stripped away excess. They simplified their training. They refined their movements. They eliminated anything that did not serve the moment. Discipline was not about adding more techniques. It was about removing noise. Every unnecessary thought weakened focus. Every extra movement diluted power. So they trained to see the moment clearly and act without hesitation. Discipline simplified choices. Focus narrowed attention. When the decision arrived, there was no debate, only execution. This is where modern minds struggle. Too many options, too many opinions, too much information. Thought loops multiply, doubt creeps in, action slows, control fractures. The samurai refused this complexity. They understood that clarity is born from simplicity. The fewer decisions you make in the moment, the stronger your control becomes. This principle extended beyond combat. In daily life, the samurai practiced finishing one task fully before moving to the next. One movement at a time, one breath at a time, one action done completely. Self-control, in this sense, was not about doing more. It was about doing less with precision. A scattered mind attempts everything and masters nothing. A disciplined mind commits fully to one action and finishes it cleanly. The rule of one cut trained this mindset relentlessly. When fear appeared, they did not hesitate. When opportunity opened, they did not delay. When action was required, they acted completely. This removed inner conflict. No debate, no regret, no second-guessing. The mind was free because the decision was already made. Modern life encourages constant multitasking, split attention, endless switching, but control dissolves when focus is divided. The samurai offer a different path. Simplify, commit, execute. This is the seventh lesson of the samurai method. Decisive action is born from disciplined clarity. When you remove excess, action becomes effortless. When focus narrows, power concentrates. One moment, one choice, one cut. And in that simplicity, self-control reaches its highest form. Not frantic effort, but calm, precise execution. Part 8. Modern application. You may not carry a sword. You may not stand on a battlefield. But make no mistake, you face battles every single day. Distractions pull your attention. Addictions whisper for instant gratification. Emotions surge and demand action before thought catches up. These are the modern enemies of self-control. And they are just as real, just as dangerous as any samurai blade. The solution is the same. The principles have not changed. Use the samurai method. Pause. Before reacting, stop. Even a single breath can create a gap between impulse and action. This is where choice begins. Breathe. Control your nervous system. Slow the inhale. Lengthen the exhale. Ground yourself in the present. Your body informs your mind, and a steady body breeds a steady mind. Observe. Notice the urge, the thought, the emotional spike. Do not judge it. Do not obey it. See it clearly, like a leaf floating on a stream, present but separate from you. Choose deliberately. Act from principle, not impulse. Ask yourself what must be done, not what feels good, easy, or comfortable. What is aligned with your values, your long-term goals, your integrity? This is how control over the moment translates to control over life. Every small interaction, a difficult conversation, a frustrating email, a craving for distraction, becomes an opportunity to practice. Every choice resisted, every impulse observed, every pause taken strengthens your self-command. Like the samurai, you're training your mind to act with clarity under pressure. Your modern battlefield is your workplace, your home, your mind. And mastery over these arenas comes from repetition, discipline, and conscious action. When you consistently pause before reacting, breathe before responding, and choose before acting, you no longer live at the mercy of impulses. Instead, you steer the course of your life. You shape outcomes instead of being shaped by them. This is the essence of the samurai method applied today. Control your response, and you control the outcome. Self-control is no longer an abstract concept. It becomes a tangible skill built by deliberate practice in your daily life. Each small victory over distraction, each moment of conscious choice, compounds into a mind that is calm, decisive, and unshakable. Modern life may be fast, chaotic, and full of temptation. But like the samurai, you can train your mind to remain steady, focused, and deliberate. You can turn every challenge into a moment of mastery. The battlefield has changed. The enemies have changed. But the method remains eternal. Pause, breathe, observe, choose, and in doing so, become your own master. Part 9, the samurai test. The samurai measured strength differently than most people do today. Strength was not the ability to shout the loudest. It was not the speed of the strike or the force of the blow. It was quiet, controlled, and deliberate. The true measure of power lies within a mind. Ask yourself, can I sit in silence without stimulation? Can I delay gratification when desire tugs at me? Can I remain calm when provoked, challenged, or threatened? These questions are the real tests of strength. Tests the samurai lived by every day. Sitting in stillness tests patience. Delaying gratification tests discipline. Remaining calm under provocation tests mastery over emotion. When you pass these tests, you're no longer ruled by circumstance. You're no longer a prisoner of impulse, habit, or fear. You are self-governing. The strongest warrior is not the loudest. He is not the one who wins every duel with brute force. The strongest warrior is the one who commands himself, even when the world tries to pull him apart. This mastery is forged slowly through repeated practice. Every breath observed, every pause taken, every deliberate action is a step toward passing the samurai test. Modern life bombards us with stimuli, convenience, and instant satisfaction. And most people fail these simple tests daily, scrolling endlessly, reacting emotionally, indulging every urge. Their minds are strong in noise, but weak in silence. Strong in reaction, but weak in restraint. The samurai knew this danger well. They built lives around small tests every day, sitting in seiza, training under fatigue, meditating in silence, performing tasks with precision. Each practice was designed to answer these questions. Can you remain steady? Can you resist the pull of the immediate? Can you act from principle instead of impulse? If the answer is yes, even in small moments, you begin to understand true strength. This is the 9th lesson of the samurai method. Strength is control. Discipline is power. Mastery is calm. The battlefield of life will test you constantly. And every time you pause, breathe, and act with intention, you pass another portion of the test. Ask yourself these questions often. Live in a way that answers them. And you will discover the silent power that the samurai have understood for centuries. The greatest weapon is the mind that cannot be shaken. If you want the mind of a samurai, you must train like one. Not for a day, not when it's convenient, but daily. relentlessly, intentionally. Begin today. Start small. Begin with 5 minutes of stillness. Sit, observe, and let the mind settle. Conscious breathing. Inhale through the nose. Exhale slowly, steadying your nervous system. Delayed reaction. Pause before responding. Choose principle over impulse. Choose clarity over chaos. These are the tools of mastery, the foundation of self-control, the first steps on a path you walk. Master yourself, and nothing outside you will have power over you. Distraction will not control you. Anger will not control you. Desire will not control you. The mind that can pause, observe, and act intentionally becomes unshakable. The warrior who trains like this moves through life with precision, calm, and authority. The battles of modern life, deadlines, stress, conflict, temptation, become arenas for practice, not traps. This is the essence of the samurai method. Control the mind. Control the moment. Control your life. Every small action compounds. Every deliberate pause strengthens your discipline. Every controlled breath sharpens your clarity. The journey begins now. The challenge is yours. Will you choose to respond, or will you continue to react? Will you live at the mercy of impulses, or will you forge your own mind into a weapon of focus and calm? If this awakens something within you, take the first step. Like this video, comment discipline. Subscribe for more warrior wisdom. These are not empty words. They are invitations to action, to practice, to transformation. The path has begun. Step forward. Train daily. Observe yourself. Command your impulses. And slowly, deliberately, the mind of a samurai will emerge. Steady, strong, and unbreakable. Because mastery is not an event. It is a habit, a choice, a life lived intentionally. And the moment you take responsibility for your mind, the world can no longer dictate your path. Control the mind. Control the moment. Control your life. The journey has begun. The battlefield is within. And the warrior in you is waiting to rise.